The movie opens up in 1992 and we see a hurricane ripping through the town of Gulfport, Alabama. Then we see two boys, Will and Breeze Rutledge, who are in a truck along with their father. The boys start arguing with each other, and because of this their father scolds them and tells them to stop. As their father was talking to them and he was distracted, his focus was not on the road and he almost ran into a falling tree in front of them. As he tries to avoid running into the tree, he loses his control over the truck and the truck swerves off the road. Then the whole family gets out of the truck and they see a house nearby, so they take refuge in that house. The father tells the boys to stay inside the house, while he goes out and tries to get the truck back on the road again. In the house, the boys were watching everything that was going on through the window, and while talking they both start to argue again. As the hurricane starts to get closer, the man understands that he won't be able to get this truck on road in time. So he tries to save himself and runs back to the house, but while he was making his way back to the house he gets hit by a giant water tank and he dies. Now the boys were trapped inside the house, and with every passing second, the storm descends. Now the movie shifts to the present time and we see a satellite, which is monitoring the path of a tropical storm. This storm is named Tammy, and the satellite watches it as it passes through the Gulf Coast. In Maryland, the National Weather Service upgrades this storm to a Class 1 hurricane. Director Frobisher calls Will, who is now a meteorologist. Will is instructed to get his drones in the air as soon as possible. The sheriff recalls the destruction, which was caused by Hurricane Andrew, and he says that he hopes to prevent Hurricane Tammy from causing destruction again. So the sheriff calls for an evacuation of the town. The residents of the town think that the sheriff is panicking unnecessarily, but the sheriff insists and soon the evacuation begins. Soon the people get into a traffic jam while they were evacuating, because of Q car that has broken down on the road and that car is now blocking the way. Among this traffic, there is a truck from the Federal Reserve, which is driven by a female agent named Casey Corbin. Casey decides to force the truck through to get the cargo to its destination. Casey is accompanied by another male agent named Connor. On the other hand, Will gets the drones airborne and he looks at the storm. He notices something and tells his team that they are underestimating the hurricane. Will calls Frobisher to warn them, but they are pretty unconcerned about it. Soon the truck arrives in town and enters the reserve facility. The cargo, which was cash, gets unloaded. The cash is all old and damaged. Then Casey enters the safe after accessing the security. Here she finds out that the shredder is malfunctioning, so two technicians named Sasha and Frears are called so that they can try to repair it. Now Casey calls her boss in Washington, and she requests that the vault code should be reset for security measures. Her boss agrees and advises her to be careful during the storm. Meanwhile, as the storm approaches, Will calls his brother and Will leaves a message to him, in which he advises his brother to get out of town. Will is worried, so he decides to turn around and go back for his brother. Meanwhile, Casey is speaking with the facility director named Morneau. But soon the power generator also starts to malfunction. And because there is no phone signal, Casey is sent to get Breeze, so that he can come and fix the generator. When Casey leaves, she looks at the technicians very suspiciously. On the other side, Will arrives at his brother's shop and finds him sleeping. Will wakes him up and they start to pack Will's brother's stuff. Unlike Will, who is worried, Breeze is more interested in getting a drink. Soon Will manages to convince him of the danger, and Breeze finally agrees to help protect his house and leave. Meanwhile, at the facility, a van arrives with a team that claims to have been called by Morneau to help with repairs. The guard gets suspicious and tries to stop them from entering the facility, but these criminals manage to force their way in. Inside, Morneau is aware of the danger and tells the technicians to stay in the room for safety. He arms his gun as the guards rush forward. Downstairs, it looks like Connor has betrayed his employers and he is helping the criminals to gain access to the facility. Connor says that there have been no casualties, as they plan to steal the $600 million of cash that were stored in the safe. Connor enters the room in which Morneau and the technicians are. Here we find out that the technicians are with Connor and they are part of his team. The technicians opens the door and they gave Connor access to enter. Meanwhile, Casey arrives at Breeze's shop and she meets Will and Breeze. She asks Breeze to come and repair the generator. Meanwhile, at the facility, the technicians try to open the vault, but they soon realize that Casey has changed the security code. They try to break the new code, but soon Casey and Breeze arrive at the facility. Casey realizes that something was wrong, so they decide to escape. Casey manages to escape, but Breeze gets captured and he is instructed to repair the generator. While the criminals pursue Casey, Will arrives there in his research vehicle and saves Casey. Will gets worried when he learns that his brother has been captured, so Will and Casey decide to go to see the sheriff. But they soon get shocked when they get to know that the sheriff is also involved in the heist, and the sheriff points a rifle at them. Sheriff then calls Connor and tells him that he has captured Casey and Will. Connor tells him to bring Casey back to the facility and says that the sheriff can do whatever he wants with Will. While they were talking, Casey finds an opportunity and shoots at the sheriff. Casey and Will manage to escape in the Dominator, but the sheriff starts chasing them. Soon Casey is out of bullets, so they strap the Dominator to the ground. Soon the sheriff's car smashes into the back, and Casey goes towards the sheriff's car. She takes the weapons from the unconscious sheriff. Meanwhile, at the facility, Breeze is drinking instead of repairing the generator, so Connor gets angry and he grabs Breeze by the neck and threatens him. Meanwhile, Casey and Will discuss their plan for their next action. Casey says that the phone lines are down, but suddenly she remembered that Sasha and Frears were still able to do their hacking, which means that they must have had a dedicated line installed. Casey and Will decide to set out to destroy it. Soon, the storm rages, and Will climbs the communications tower, where he connects a cable to the tower. Soon Connor arrives with the sheriff. They were searching for Casey, and as they see the Dominator, they start to open fire on the Dominator. Casey manages to drive it away, and at the same time, they manage to pull the tower down. The phone line gets disconnected and the technicians are very frustrated as they haven't managed to completely crack the code. Because of this, the criminals inside the facility get angry and start to fight amongst themselves. As they were distracted, Breeze finally gets the generator working. Breeze searches for the locked-up guards and soon he finds them, but as he tries to release them, the technicians electrify the gate and stop Breeze in his tracks. On the other hand, Casey and Will are discussing the situation. Will asks why she doesn't just give them the code, as it's not her money after all, but Casey says that once they get the money they will kill all the witnesses. Soon, Connor returns to the facility and the sheriff decides to turn on Connor so that he can claim all the money for himself and his men. But Connor pulls out a gun and shoots the sheriff. Connor then manages to persuade the sheriff's men to join him and sends them out to find Casey. Meanwhile, inside a mall, Casey reaches out to Connor via a radio. Casey offers to open the vault if Connor promises to release the hostages. Connor agrees to release Morno and Breeze first and then the guards after she opens the safe. Casey tells Connor their location. And inside a sports shop, Will hands Casey some equipment and tells her to put it on. After a while, sheriff's men arrive at the mall with Breeze. Casey demands to know where Morno is, but she finds out that they haven't brought him. Soon the storm reaches over their heads and Will checks the atmospheric pressure. Will then shoots the glass ceiling. Because of this, the storm pulls everyone up through the roof. And as Will and Casey have tied themselves securely, they do not fly away, and Breeze manages to hold onto a nearby object and he crawls his way to safety. They soon go back to Breeze's house to see if he has gone there, but there is no sign of him. Casey plans to make a homemade explosive device with the help of fertilizer, so they go to the garden center to fetch some. Once inside, alerted by Dominator that some more criminals have arrived there. The criminal was making their demands, but suddenly a massive tidal wave sweeps through the town, and through the front of the shop. The tide washes everyone away with it in the streets. Will and Casey hold on to some debris. Soon Will manages to find the Dominator, while Casey continues floating. But she is soon picked up by Connor. While Will is lying on top of the Dominator, shivering because of the cold, Breeze suddenly arrives there in a speedboat. Will tells his brother that he lost Casey. Meanwhile, Connor takes Casey back to the facility. But Casey refuses to open the vault as Morno has not been released, but Connor threatens to kill Morno if she doesn't comply. So finally, Casey hands over the keycode to the vault to Connor. Everyone enters the vault and Connor shoots Morno in revenge for all the trouble that Casey has caused them. As they start to load up the money and Connor instructs them to bring Casey along with them. Breeze takes Will home and they load up their weapons. The eye of the storm soon passes overhead, so there is a window of opportunity while the weather is calm. When they get outside, they see some fully loaded trucks leaving with Casey as a prisoner. They decide to follow them, and while Will and Breeze head to intercept the convoy, they both realize the importance that they both have in their life. So the two brothers apologize to each other for their actions in the past and try to make up and to look past their differences. But the storm is catching up with the convoy, and everyone has very little time left. Connor and his men are worried about the storm, so they are unaware that the brothers are behind them. As the brothers reach close to the convoy trucks, they jump from their vehicle and cling to the back of the last truck in the convoy. They climb into the cab and they manage to hijack the truck from Sasha and Frears. After hijacking the last truck, Will jumps onto the next truck, in which Casey is being held prisoner. Because of the distraction, Casey finds the window that she needs and she starts to fight with her captors. Because of all this, the truck runs off the road. But Will can climb inside. He takes control of the truck and he manages to narrowly avoid the truck crashing into some water towers which were nearby. And soon, because of Will's driving, Casey manages to overcome her attacker and she defeats them. Meanwhile, Breeze has caught up with the first truck that is being driven by Connor. Connor looks at Breeze and in anger, he decides to shoot him. As Connor is about to shoot Breeze, Casey shoots at Connor from behind, and the bullet that Casey shoots at Connor manages to injure Connor's arm. The brothers come up with a plan and then they drive their trucks on either side of Connor. Soon they manage in passing him, and when they got in front of Connor's truck, they slowed Connor down, and as the storm reaching up from behind, they managed to drive Connor back into the oncoming storm. And as soon as the storm catches the back of the truck, it easily rips the trailer off and Connor loses all the money that was in that truck. The trailer flies up into the sky, and as it comes down, the trailer crashes into the cab, crushing and killing Connor instantly. Breeze tries to jump from his truck into Will's, and after making his way into Will's truck, they all try to rescue Sasha and Frears as well, but they are too late, and that truck is also pulled into the storm and they were not able to save them. Will doesn't have time to feel sorry for them as the storm was about to reach them, so he puts his foot on the accelerator, and although the storm claws at his trailer, he can outrun it. Soon after, they are driving in the sunshine, having been able to rescue $200 million. Casey suggests that they keep it and head to Mexico and start a new life. Breeze agrees with Casey, but Will on the other hand seems uncomfortable. She reveals that she was joking and they all laugh.